Hello everyone, I'm pretty much back where I ended the last walk. So that's Coxbench station just behind me, which is pretty much where I ended the last one. This is part 2 of an explore of the 18th century Little Eaton Gangroad and a walk along the Midland Railways Denby branch or Ripley branch. What I'm going to do, I'm going to see if I'd make a decent weatherman. So basically in the last walk we started at Little Eaton, which is down here, and then we walked all the way up to Coxbench there. We had a little look around Horston Castle or Horsley Castle, depending on how people want to say it, and that's where we ended the walk. What we're going to do now, start off at Coxbench, we're going to come all the way up through Kilburn, the village of Kilburn in Derbyshire. We're going to have a little look around there at the colliery, and then we're going to come up to Denby, to the site of Denby Colliery, Denby Ironworks, Denby Brickworks, Paintworks, you name it, there was a works there. And we'll have a little look as well at the remains of Denby Station. And then we'll also find out just how tarmac was invented. Need to stop me eating like this, and then by the 5th time it's just awkward. So here we go, to the right you've got a little bottle brook down there, and then there's the road. That was the Little Eaton Gangroad here. They've built it was an A road, it's now a B road, over that, and this is the Midland Railways branch. This was built in 1856 by the Midland Railway to access the collieries of Kilburn, Denby, and also the collieries further afield over in Ripley. And actually this line eventually joined up with the Ambergate and Pye Bridge line of the Midland Railway, which we walked a little bit of when me and Phil did our explore of Lower Hartsea, or Lower Hartshay, however you say it. I'm always saying places wrong. We did a little bit of a walk on the railway line there. This line eventually joins up with that. I'm not going to go that far though, as I showed in my little weatherman experience. Just going to go as far as Denby. But there's a lot going off there, loads of remains there. And this Gangroad, which is, like I say, now a main road, we lose it in a bit for quite a while, by quite a distance, but then eventually it joins us in Denby. And I'm hoping to find some remains there, because there is actually a really old incline, which I didn't even know existed. And so I'm going to try and have a look and see if I can find that. At least because it's so cold, and it is cold, that it's all sort of frozen, so it's actually not that boggy. This railway closed, the stations all closed to passengers in 1930, apart from Coxbench there, which opened for one day, as I said in the last video, FA Cup final day in 1946, when Derby fans wanted to get a train down to London. Then it stayed open for a bit into the 60s, I'm pretty sure, just for, you know, little bits of traffic and little bits of goods here and there. But in terms of coal, this line actually didn't close until the late 90s, which is why I'm actually walking on ballast. So we've reached our first road. And look at that. And look at the size of that for a crossing gate post. It's huge. I mean, that is enormous. I mean, just look at the hinges alone. Jeez Louise. Okay, so let's get across. We've not reached the point, unfortunately, yet where it becomes a nice trodden path. But I'm pretty sure it does become one. But there is a bit of there's going to be a bit of clambering for a bit first, unfortunately. Okay, so here's a crossing. As you can see, like I mentioned before, ballast the whole way. And there's a bit of embedded rail there, look at that. There you go. So the Little Eaton Gangroad, I know I keep going on about that, it's running alongside us here, it's parallel. And actually where that van's going, under the bridge, I don't know if you can just make that out through there, that's where the Gangroad went. They basically followed the road, or rather the road followed it. And it went through there into Lower Kilburn that way, but we have to follow this line, so we're actually going to come all the way round, but we will join up again. There's a mattress. There you go, don't know if that's 19th century. And here's a bridge. Look how straight that line is now. I mean, that's like a Roman road, isn't it? We'll actually come up to a Roman road a little bit later on, actually. It goes straight across, dissects the railway. Look at that. Oh, I bet that's freezing. I bet that's freezing. I bet that's the village of Holbrook, that is. It's a really nice little village, that. So here we go. And this is the brook, Bottle Brook. Kind of follows along. And like I say, that's where the Little Eaton Gangroad went. But we're stomping along here. As I said in the last video, I used to live around here. I used to live in Kilburn, actually, which is... Well, there's Lower Kilburn and Upper Kilburn. We're going to go into Lower Kilburn on this walk. I lived in Upper Kilburn, which is basically just top of the hill. Which is good if it's flooding. But this line that I'm walking on now, you couldn't really get on here. It was so overgrown. When I used to come out on little walks and stuff, when my daughter was first born, I used to wrap her up in this, we used to call it the gruffalo. It was like this big, furry thing, and then she'd be strapped to my chest. And we'd go on these big stomps. She'd just sleep, to be fair. And I'd always try and get on this railway, but there were so many brambles and stuff. I was like, all right, I'll sack that off. Obviously, I've got a baby attached to me. But a couple of times I came on my own, and it was just thrashing around. But now it's clear as day. It's beautiful. It's such a nice day. My hands are freezing. I didn't learn from yesterday. I was whinging when I did the last video that my hands were cold and I should wear gloves. Didn't learn. Never do. But there you go. There's a little bit of an equestrian vibe going on there. Less bothered about that. There you go. There's a sleeper, look. And the trees are coming in now, but it's still passable, which is great. Here we go. Here's our first remain then. 2 coffees, please, mate. It does look a bit like that, doesn't it? I don't even know what that is. What is that hanging up? Some jump leads, obviously. So we've got some burnt out cans, we've got some jump leads. They've had a few fires in here, look at that, look at the ceiling. There you go. So I'm not sure what that's all about. Permanent weight gang, I guess. A few lads in there, keeping the track clear back in the day, going there for a cup of tea and some jump leads. Okay, onwards. Yeah, that's the A38, that is. Mega noisy. It's just constant hum. In a bit, we're going to come up to a tunnel that goes under the A38, but it's not one of those beautiful, glorious tunnels, you know, sometimes that you explore, like a red brick arch and all that. It's just concrete. Because it came later. It came when that A38 was built, which I'm pretty sure was the 70s, maybe even the early 80s. Someone will probably be able to correct me on that. That's more local than me. So we're off the embankment and we're coming into a bit of a cutting now. Still here, the A38 humming away. But we've got a nice remain now. So you know I mentioned obviously a second ago about this concrete tunnel, but before we get to that, look at that. We have got a beautiful red brick Midland Railway crossing. 1856, beautiful stuff. Look at that. There's even an office chair by the look of it. I'm not sure I want to sit on it though. Is that an office chair? No, that's a hairdresser's chair, isn't it? Of course, I mean, why wouldn't there be a hairdresser's chair underneath the railway bridge? These dogs are not happy to see me. Wow, not happy at all. Look at that, there you go. There's a little plate layers hut just sat there like that, look. And look at the colours of those trees in the distance, beautiful. There's a sleeper as well. So I'm walking slowly at the point where I should probably be pegging it because those dogs don't sound happy. There you go, look, more discarded sleepers as well. It's worth noting as well that these are wooden ones. And bearing in mind this line went up until the late 90s, dragging coal out because they open cast these pits. you know, I was expecting concrete ones. I'm not gutted though, there's something special about wooden ones. Oh, I'm glad I wore trainers. So here we go. Underneath the A38, they've painted it since I was last here actually. It actually does brighten it up a little bit. I'm sure they probably painted it just to cover up some of the graffiti there, no doubt. And look at that, there you go, it's all ballast still. If I remember rightly, you could see the marks last time I came, I mean it was a long time ago, but last time I came down here you could actually see the marks of the sleepers, you know, going across. Because this line was single track from the beginning. As I mentioned earlier, and probably numerous times in the last video, it was built in 1856 and the stations were only open until 1930, which was the case for a lot of them, you know, down on the Skegby branch, on the Teversall branch and all that, all the stations there, they all kind of went in 1930. It seemed to be a time where maybe these railway companies were auditing and going, this is losing money. So they sacked them off. But they kept the platforms there, and a lot of the times they kept the station buildings because it was open then for goods, you know, for little local industry and stuff like that. But as I said before, this one stayed open until the late 90s, which is kind of weird because Kilburn Colliery closed down in 1967, and it actually only lasted that long. It actually closed down properly before that, but actually what happened was the Denby colliery, which is only about half a mile away, actually broke through into the Kilburn colliery seams. So then they started working them seams, so it gave it a bit of a new lease of life. But only for a year. So that lasted till 1967, and then Denby colliery went in 1968. So the fact this line was running up until the late 90s is kind of crazy, really. But they did do a load of open casting there. For people that aren't really that au fait with sort of coal mining, normally you dig down deep, you know, and then, you know, you do all your workings underground or whatever. But with an open casting, basically just bang, bosh, dig it all out. And so that's why all that land that we're going to come to is decimated in terms of the colliery. You wouldn't know it was a colliery. But there are some remains in and around it that point to industry, which is great. Oh, there's another angry dog. So again, this actually isn't that different, this part, to when I lived here actually. So in terms of clearing the line and making it, you know, accessible for walkers and cyclists, if they did do it, which I'm pretty sure they did, but if they did, then they've not maintained it and they basically just let it get overgrown again, unfortunately. There we go. There's another little bridge, look. Again, freezing cold, but it's beautiful. There's something about this kind of time of year, isn't there? We're just coming into the village of Kilburn now. It's funny, isn't it, when they built these railways there was no expense spared. So bearing in mind, with Kilburn station, it was a single platform, no remains whatsoever of that at all, but it was just a single platform. But they built this grand station hotel, which is still there, so we'll see that in a second. It's now, I think it's a nursery, at least it was a nursery, a kids nursery. Just past another bridge, actually I should show you that. Let me turn you around. There you go, look at that. It's another bridge. But yeah, they just spent money, didn't they? You know, these big grand station hotels. And you know, Kilburn's a tiny place now. It's got little housing estates and stuff that have popped up in the last, you know, probably 20-30 years. But even with that, it's a tiny place. So I don't know who's staying in this grand hotel. There you go, it's nearly tripped over that. I've got a sleeper in situ. That's a concrete one though, that. So maybe they replaced all the wooden ones then, you know, sort of late on, which is why the wooden ones are sort of chucked. So we're coming up to the road now. There was a crossing here, and I'm pretty sure if I go back on old Google Maps, there was still track in place, you know, going back to when they were still doing Google Maps. early days. That, Kingfisher Day Nursery, that is the station hotel, which is pretty grand, isn't it? Like I say, given the fact that the station was only one platform and hardly anyone used it, to the point where, you know, it had gone by 1930. So there you go, look, you can see on the road there, that's where the line's gone across. I'm just going to run across. I am going to go down there in a minute just to point a couple of bits and bobs out. And this is where the track bed continues.
We finished up in court. I was standing here waiting and she was pissed out of her head. In the box. All right, Jim.
I'll tell you when you're over, John.
Hey?
I'll tell you when you're over.
Alright.
We can't get through that bit, so I'm going to have to go around anyway. So as I come round, I'll show you this bit here. So, this whole area here was all awash with different lines. You know, where you've got now, you know, some of these modern factory buildings and car dealerships and stuff like that, the tracks came over here into a big sort of complex of lines. So I'll show you a little picture on the old map of that. And where these cars are changing there, the crossing, the Little Eaton Gangroad came down there and followed that road, and then it veered off just to the right and it went down to Kilburn Colliery. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk around and get back onto the track bed a little bit beyond these factory buildings. Look, there's a couple of modern bits there, but you can see the old arch. That's the original bridge there as the brook went underneath the gangway. Okay, so I've just come across the road. So this road here that comes off down here to, it says Denby Depot, that was a mineral railway line, and it goes down there, and just beyond the very tall trees there's something called Prospect House. Behind that is that Denby Depot, and the Denby Depot is the site of Kilburn Colliery. The 18th century Little Eaton Gangroad basically followed here where I'm walking. This road was here, but obviously it wasn't anywhere near as wide as it is now, and so the Gangroad followed to the right of the road before doing a sharp turn left just beyond those terraced houses and in and underneath the Midland Railway. The Midland Railway currently is in that tree line in the distance, so what I'm going to do, the next available opportunity, is jump through to the left, probably just in between these houses here. I'm going to get back on that railway line. This whole area was just awash with industry. There's not really much going on now. But I remember when I lived here, I lived in Upper Kilburn, which is just at the top of the hill. And a friend of mine, a guy called Ricky, he was like, you need to get on this side-by-side maps website. I'd never heard of it at that point. And so when I was out walking, I was out running, I'd always be stumbling across stuff, whether it be a little bridge abutment or some kind of brickwork in the middle of a forest, which didn't seem to make any sense. And you'd literally just look and you go, oh mate, that was a brickworks. Oh mate, that was an ironworks. That was a mineral line. There was so much going on here. So what I'll do is I'll put a little side-by-side maps, you know, quite a wide image now of it, so you can just see how much is going off around here. There's none of it now. Oh, this is enthusiastic. Or rather, I'm enthusiastic. I meant to say promising. This is promising. Yeah, public footpath. So we're going to at very least get across the railway. I'm hoping I can do a right and actually get onto it. So here's a clue, look at that. Stop, look, listen, beware of graffiti. So this was the crossing then, to get across that Midland line, but obviously we're going to jump on it because, you know, the train's not come for 25 years. Although, that doesn't look that passable, does it? No, not in the slightest. Right, I'll get on the, I'll walk parallel for a bit then. Here we go. I can see what I think is a kind of track beddy vibe that we should hopefully be able to get onto now. Oh, hello birdie. Yeah, there we go. So this is the track bed, so we can follow it down here. So I apologise if I've been, oh, nearly fell over. I apologise, I've been a little bit confusing because I keep talking about the railway and I keep talking about the Gangroad. So to recap, where we started the last walk in Little Eaton, that was where Derby Canal came to the wharf there, where Benjamin Outram opened in 1795 the Little Eaton Gangroad. And what that was a horse-drawn railway that came all the way up here to Kilburn Colliery and then to Denby Colliery. Then what happened in 1856 is the Midland Railway built a railway to do basically exactly the same thing. So the two worked side by side together for about 50 years, and then in the end the railway, just because of the sheer level of output that it could do in comparison with horses, basically signed the death warrant of the Little Eaton Gangroad. So that was gone by 1908. So when I keep saying about, you know, oh, railway, gangway, gangroad, stuff like that, I'm sorry if that becomes confusing, but actually the two are massively intertwined. They basically followed the same route. So there's little bits that you're walking on one, and there's little bits that you're walking on the other. So we've reached the end of the line here. I'm going to come and show you the view though. So this is the Midland Railway. Now, I'm going to go down there in a sec. It's a road now, or at least a, you know, a pathway that goes under there. That was the Little Eaton Gangroad. The Little Eaton horse-drawn cart went underneath the Midland Railway. I'm going to have to walk round to get a better view though, because that fence is a bit of an eyesore really. And here we are, as if by magic. Okay, so that's where we were a second ago. See, that horrible fencing was blocking the view. This is the Little Eaton Gangroad, the horse-drawn 18th century Gangroad. Now it goes all the way down there to the main road. Obviously that road was there, but it was, you know, just a tiny little road back in those days. Didn't really have many cars and stuff, certainly later on. But it came down here underneath, and this is the Midland Railway. Now it expands there, look, you can see one, and there's two lines there. That then went into the Ironworks, and then it went over here into the colliery. That's where Denby Colliery was, and just here was a brickworks and a paintworks. The Little Eaton Gangroad, I keep saying gangway and gangroad, I don't know what the difference is, went up there into the colliery site, and it also went up there into a brickworks there, and then onto an incline, which I'm going to go and have a look at in a minute before exploring this site, because there is a lot going on here. Now this bridge I found on Facebook while I was editing down the last video, this amazing image from above where you can just see this bridge and you can see the vastness of the site, of the complex there, and everything in the distance. So I'll put that image up. But before we go and explore up there, where there is plenty going on, I'm going to quickly just follow this little route through to a little incline on that Little Eaton Gangroad, and then I can kind of write that off. That's done, that's finished. As I've said before, I used to live just up the road, so I used to go out running early in the mornings, you know, when Nipper was asleep and my wife was asleep, and I just get out and get a run done. I like to get stuff done early, and then I can just get on with my day. But we'd come running down here. I just assumed it was, you know, just a normal pathway, didn't really think much of it. And then I did start seeing these here, these reservoirs. There's quite a few of these pools along. Now they're related to the colliery, which is just through those trees there. As I said earlier, open cast, absolutely no remains of that. It is just basically just a scarred wasteland, which I'm sure will be, you know, apartment blocks or a housing estate at some point, because, you know, everything is. But at the end of this bit, you do a left, and it takes you up into a place called Open Woodgate, which is just on the edge of Belper, if anyone knows Belper. It's quite a big town in the Amber Valley here in Derbyshire. And I always wondered why this hill, through this field, through the middle of this field, had stonework. And I was thinking, is this an ancient road? Like, what is this? But it turns out it was the end of this Benjamin Outram Little Eaton Gangroad, and it went up to a farm, with the farm still there at the top of that hill. So I'm assuming, obviously it came in here to the colliery, into the ironworks, the brickworks. A bit further on there was a siding for Denby Pottery, which you mentioned before. That's still a company still going now, very famous, very posh pottery company, which is kind of world famous, I think, actually. But it ended by going up to this farm, so I'm assuming maybe for milk churns and stuff, you know, that would be chucked into these horse-drawn wagons, or maybe, you know, they were taking up coal for the farmer, I don't know. Okay, so we're coming up to that turn now. It's a really sharp turn. If I just put up a picture of an old map, you'll be able to see just how sharp that turn is. But I guess when you're horse-drawn and you're going at a leisurely pace, it's a lot easier to do a sharp turn than it would be you know, on a train. Okay, so let's just bring you around. You just see that farm at the top? That's where this incline was going up to. Now, you might be able to hear, if I shut up, that hum, that's the A38. The A38 now dissects this actually, so it just becomes a bridge. But this here was a little known incline of the Little Eaton Gangroad. There you go, you can just see, do you know what I mean? You can just make it out. There's a little embankment to the side of it, and there's some stonework through there. It went straight up to that farm, so you'd have got horse-drawn tubs up until 1908 coming up and down this incline. I know it don't look like much, but one, I wanted to complete the journey for a start, but also it's still history in it. And the fact that this was gone by 1908, replaced by the railway, but at the same time, you know, when this appeared in 1795, it would have been a game changer. You know, it would have been really, really important to the people of Derby, particularly the city of Derby, because that connection from Derby Canal to the Little Eaton Gangroad that came all the way up here, getting coal out of Kilburn, getting coal out of Denby, getting the pottery out of Denby pottery, getting the ironwork out of the ironworks, brickwork out of the brickworks, and getting it into the city to heat people's homes, to also, you know, fire industry there in the city, because, you know, Derby was just one big factory basically back in the day. But also to get bricks in there and stuff to build the city that is now basically just been replaced with concrete and glass. But that's, you know, I'm not going to whinge. They call it progress apparently, I'm not so sure. We're back. Okay, so this is where that gang road went into the complex here. Now where that fencing is, that's the site of Denby Colliery. That went in 1968, and as I say, open cast and long gone. Now I'm seeing a gate here, which is a bit unfortunate because I'm pretty sure that, oh no, there's a big gap result. Right, I've never been so happy to see poor fencing. Now this here, there's some remains, I'm pretty sure, of the railway, but this site here where this, hello mate, you all right? Where this very beautiful looking horse is, that was the Ironworks. It's a huge complex of ironworks, and these fields here, where I'm pretty sure there's more horses, that was a huge complex that was the Denby Colliery, and in those trees there were some brickworks as well. So there's loads going off. Now here, there was, I'm pretty sure, some loading platforms and stuff like that, because there's some track embedded here, and there was a structure here late on. Hello mate, you don't blink, do you? Mind, I can't see with your hair like that. So let's go a little bit further down here so we can see again some of this track. Look at that, there you go. Now the video that I kind of interspliced a little bit from YouTube, Utox 5F, the guy's name is, he's got a video of something called the Denby Dawdler, which is one of the last workings that came up here, but it was with passengers to have a look at the line. And actually once it gets to this bit, you'll see there's a big structure here where there was a loading thing, whatever they call that, I'm not entirely sure. Long defunct by the time that the footage was taken, but actually the building is still there, so you can see that was taken right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow this down. Again, look, there's the tracks, they're all still in place, look. And this is where that structure was. Over there, a mineral line went off, and over those trees there, in fact, there's some remains of that. So what I'll do is I'll come round, and then we can actually have a look at that. Save me just talking about it. I'll tell you a story while we're walking round. Edgar Purnell Hooley. Have you ever heard of him? I hadn't either, but he sounds like a 19th century romantic poet, and I quite like that. So what he was the Nottingham surveyor, the county surveyor for the county of Nottinghamshire, even though we're in Derbyshire, but there you go. It was 1901, you do what you liked. So he came here to this site of the ironworks to basically just make sure everything was working okay, everyone was you know, following the rules and safety and all that kind of stuff. And they had these big piles of slag, as it was called, basically waste. So you had the coal waste over there in the colliery, and you had this ironworks wastage, ironworks slag. And what happened was someone knocked over a big barrel of tar, and that tar mixed in with the waste from this ironworks, and it went hard. Now in those days, you know, vehicles were starting to be on the roads a bit more, and horse and carts were starting to go, you know, flying around a bit more, and all that was on the roads then was basically just cinder, essentially, and, you know, dust. So every you know, vehicle that would fly past, you know, these bits would come up and they go in people's eyes and all sorts, and it would go in the horse's eyes and whatever. So it was a bit of a nightmare, and they were always having to relay the roads. But suddenly he thought, hang on a minute, so okay, bit of wastage here, a little bit of slag from the ironworks, chuck a bit of tar in there. Granted, it's happened accidentally, but it's gone hard. And so he patented it and he started a company, and that company was called Tarmac. Now Tarmac, you will be driving on no matter where you are in the world. You might call it asphalt or whatever. Tarmac is the brand name. So let me just turn you around. This is Tarmac. So this was invented in 1901, right here in what is now basically just wasteland, but what was the Denby Ironworks. It was invented by a guy called Edgar Purnell Hooley. So there you go. You can have that story. You can have that. Tell that over Christmas dinner. It's a good nugget though, isn't it? It's a good nugget, a fact. And it's amazing what is invented by just sheer accident because some plonker knocked over a tar barrel. Incredible. That's Derbyshire for you though. The history here, honestly, is unparalleled. Not that I'm biased. Anyway, through those trees, you get to Denby Station, which we're going to do in a minute. But I'm coming down onto this road because I want to show you the remains of this viaduct. Now, see where these houses are? There's actually a mineral line went behind those houses and then over a street called Reichnold Street, which is actually an ancient Roman road, and into a colliery called Ryfield Colliery. Now I've looked on the old maps that go back to the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century, and it's already disused, it's already closed. So I don't know what year that closed, it didn't give me that much information, but I know it had gone by the turn of the century. So it was an early loss. And we'll come round onto the road and you better see these two stanchions in a second. Now, can you just make out through those trees? It's not very easy because there's a brook here as well, and I'm wearing trainers, not waders. You see the red brickwork? That's the start of this viaduct that came out of the ironworks facility, came across the road. Oh, stuck in a tree. And there you go. Look at it right there, clear as day. And I always wondered what that was because I used to come running down here and I used to see that and I used to think, what line was that? But it went off, went round the back of those houses which weren't there at that point, and then into this Ryfield Colliery. So as I said, Ryfield Colliery went early doors, turn of the century, turn of the 20th century. Now the fields around that old colliery, that then leads down to Denby Pottery. And after the First World War, during the First World War, sorry, one of those fields was used as a German prisoner of war camp. And I used to live up that way, so I started reading into that because, you know, history, I enjoy history, obviously, that's why I do stuff like this. And so I was looking at this, and what happened was Denby Pottery used a lot of the German POWs to work at their pottery factory. And they were working along with British workers. And then they segregated them, and they separated all the German workers from all the British workers, and they had to work different shifts. So I thought, that's odd, I wonder why they've done that. Because they got on too well. Which is amazing, isn't it? And then you think about war and, you know, and death and destruction, which is an endless cycle. It's 2023 and people are still blowing each other up now. But actually, if you let people just get on, you take the management, you take the government, you take the military, you take them out of the equation, and you just put a load of German lads in with a load of British lads, they'll just get on, won't they? Do you know what I mean? As humans, we just get on if people just leave us to it. And so in the end, like I say, they had to segregate them and put them on different shift patterns because despite the fact that the two countries were at war, they were just getting on like mates. So that's where we've come from. Just come back to the old path of the railway now. and that is impassable, but I am going to come round because I know there's a path just to the side of it which was also railway because there were sidings here. Okay, so I've come round there was no remains there whatsoever, it was just a forest. So I'm going to walk up to the site of Denby station because it is still there, but it's a private house, so as always, you know, I ain't going to be going too mad on the filming because, you know, people's privacy. But I didn't want to do the walk to Denby station and then not see Denby station because that just seems silly. But that's where we can end it for this walk and for this, I was going to say series, but I guess it's 2 episodes. Does that constitute a series? Not entirely sure. Let's pretend it does. So there you go, there's Denby station. So you can see the light brick, obviously that's an extension, that. And you can see just behind that car where there's some overgrown area, that's the track bed, but it's completely overgrown. You can't walk down there unless, you know, you've got a sickle with you or a scythe, like the Grim Reaper. But here we go. I won't do too much, like I say, too much filming. I'll just come from a distance, but it's a beautiful building. And what I'll do is I'll put up a little bit of that footage from Uttoxeter 5F. Because you can see actually the train, the Denby Dawdler, come across here. There you go, look, the old station house. It's kept in really good nick. Here we go, here's the track bed then. Oh, I can see a buffer, look at that. And there's a buffer hiding away in the overgrowth. It went across the road, straight through there and carried on to Ripley. So that's the end of that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm being blinded now. I hope you've enjoyed it. You know, some of the old remains and stuff that are scattered about, but also, you know, some of the stories and stuff. I love the Tarmac story, I think that's great. And you know what, I also love the prisoner of war camp story, the fact they get on, you know, it gives you hope for the future. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.